Hello and welcome to the first episode of Virtually Real. I'm really good at naming things and at pronouncing the things that are named, so this name is perfect for me. The other day I was trying to make a news video where I had collected about 3 points I wanted to talk about and written a little script and voiced the script even, but when I was putting all the points together, it didn't really feel like me. I may do news videos in the future, but this kind of format just didn't feel like true to myself. So instead, today you're getting something I want to talk about, something that I'm personally affected by, and that I've heard some of you are too, the Impostor Syndrome. I can already tell some of you are going to write comments about Among Us, and by all means go ahead, I can use the engagement, but that's not what this is about. No, if you spend any time on the internet, you're bound to encounter some people who are affected by this, especially in arts communities, where if you're making music or drawing or editing videos or writing any kind of this stuff, there will always be people who are really good at what they're doing and don't see it themselves. You may even be affected by it. To be clear, this doesn't mean you need to be a genius level at whatever you're doing and perceiving yourself as not genius. It just means that you yourself think you're way worse than you actually are at what you're doing. So in online communities, the experience is often that you see everyone else make great stuff, and you do your own stuff, but you feel like it just isn't good enough, even though other people clearly think it is. So here's how this relates to me. I've worked in quite a few industries over the years, which most of you probably know that I'm a software developer, and Imposter Syndrome is really strong in that area, not only for me personally, but for many people in the area. Then I did an administration and moderation for Germany's largest chat. I wrote articles for game dev magazines, translated and edited all kinds of documentation material from German to English and vice versa, and even ran a community of about 10,000 developers of an online RPG, where we were basically hosting the source code and helping each other build on it too, so everyone could make their own game. And you'd think at some point one would just learn to accept that, hey, I can do some things adequately. And quite truthfully, no, that never really happens in the way you're hoping for. The one feeling that always stays the same is that you're just being an imposter among people who are really good when you're not, and that at some point you just will be found out. Some people will discover that you're just acting like someone who can do the thing, and you'll be forced to leave. Not everyone has this, but from talking to people, the tendency seems to be the more you work in creative stuff, the more likely you are to have had it at some point in your life and possibly still have it. But just to be clear, so you can have identified yourself, let's look into the definition. Wikipedia defines it like this. Imposter syndrome is a psychological pattern in which an individual doubts their skills, talents or accomplishments and has a persistent internalized fear of being exposed as a fraud. Despite external evidence of their competence, those experiencing this phenomenon remain convinced that they are frauds and do not deserve all they have achieved. So if you do suffer from imposter syndrome, no matter how much external sources or, since we're living in the social media age, metrics tell you, hey, you're doing alright, the brain still kinda goes, no, that's not actually you doing alright, that's just some kind of luck you got going. It'll end. You'll be found out and then laughed out of the room. Now, since this doesn't present the same for everyone, we need to go into a little bit more detail. Research calls it the Imposter Cycle. It begins with an achievement-related task, something where you'd have to put in a lot of work. that's when you already start doubting your ability to do it and react by either over-preparation or procrastination. I'm in the latter camp. I'm a pro-procrastinator. So if, like me, you're of the procrastinator variety, you'll probably be like, okay, I've got all time in the world before the deadline arrives, I'll just do something else. And then when you catch yourself seeing the deadline arrive, you'll be like, okay, I'll do it really quick, just in the nick of time. And if you succeed with this, even if it is positive feedback, you'll tell yourself, whoa, I got really lucky again there. And if your type is more about the over-preparation, then you'll put a lot of work in preparing resources to make sure you succeed. But when you do eventually succeed, you'll put it all on the resources you prepared. Anyone could have succeeded in your position had they had the resources that you had. Ignoring the fact that, yeah, you did prepare them, so it was your work. And in the end, no matter what you do, whether you do over-prepare or you just do it in the nick of time, you will always have an excuse for why you didn't do well in this moment. And then when you constantly see other people do well and receive positive feedback, and then you receive positive feedback despite you knowing that you shouldn't get it, you will feel like an imposter, someone who didn't deserve what they get. Little story from my childhood, which may or may not tie into this. I'm not sure if it's linked, but it always reminds me of the same feeling. When I was about 12 years old, I had already a huge interest in writing software for computers, even games. I had written a few very simple text-based games in QBasic. And an adult I knew, stepfather kind of figure, had a computer problem that I was able to diagnose quite easily. But since I was a kid, I get told, no, you could not know that. You're a kid. How would you know that? No, you're way too young. I will discount your opinion. And even though it later turned out to be quite correct, this feeling made me doubt my own abilities at the time. I knew very well what I was capable of, but since adults who I trusted very much, because they told me it couldn't be that I knew this kind of stuff, I wasn't sure how that could actually be true. Now, about 20 years later, I'm able to accept that I'm, pretty fucking good at software development and with computers in general. But at the time, it was tough. Today, I've gotten a lot better at assessing success of stuff that I do, and it often doesn't feel like my own success or not deserved because I can see how I could have done stuff better, but I did learn to manage it at least a bit. Now, bear with me for a moment because this will probably sound weird at first. It's not like it ever really goes away on its own, but you can just kind of talk yourself into accepting your results by just focusing on stuff you enjoy. So even if initially you don't believe in your own achievements, you will still enjoy your own achievements. It may sound weird, but there's a distinct difference. I suck at handling compliments for my own work because, well, I don't believe I did actually do good work. And people just mistake it for good work for lack of better references. But when I focus on making stuff where I just enjoy the end result, in the end there'll always be something that I feel positively about. So if you are into anything creative especially, reframe your thinking with that in mind. Look at the result of your work, independent of your involvement. And then when you find yourself thinking, that's actually pretty neat, maybe sneakily follow up your own thought with, and I was a part of making this, or I made this. It will allow you to take ownership of your own successes far easier. At that point, your brain has already assessed whether it was good work or bad work objectively, and the nagging part that's usually there to tell you did not deserve this suddenly doesn't have its main argument available anymore. And your brain may just be able to accept that, that's good work, and then, you did this. That said, with some things it does get easier over time. For example, software development. I used to have a real problem accepting success in that area, but right now I know I'm good, and that won't change easily anymore. I don't have to trick myself anymore. I do the same with music stuff, for example, or writing at times. When I was writing for game developer magazines, I didn't feel like I deserved a place there, but after a while I knew basically yes, it's my skill set, it is what I like doing, it is what I can do well, so it worked out in the end. Just power through it, I guess. So yeah, this is basically my a bit lengthy opening statement on the topic. I don't think I've touched on everything that's relevant or everything that you could or should do if you are affected by that, but I see it as the start of a discussion basically. I want you to comment what you would like to talk about, if it has to do with you or if you have any ideas that I may have forgotten to talk about. Maybe I can talk about that in a follow-up episode. That's it for now, I guess. See you next time.